Hello, good people of YouTube. Welcome to episode 67 of What Makes This Song Special. A Christmassy episode. I've got my Santa hat, my Rudolph top, my Christmas tree, feeling festive. A wee story for you that takes me back to a Christmas, or a sort of, yeah, it takes me back to Christmas at some point in the story. And a Christmas song, of course, to follow up in my part two. For anyone who's not tuned in before, I'll tell a wee story, sometimes a funny one, a sad one, a silly one, that takes me back to a song. Why does that song, resonate with the story? What makes the song special to me will be in the storyline. I'll talk a wee bit about the song, the history of the song, and I'll do a part two with a cover version of the song by me. So that's what I do every week. This wasn't meant to be a part two to last week's story. Sort of accidentally, it kind of does link to it in a way. So last week I told a wee story about me buying my first ever keyboard, which was a second-hand Yamaha classic synth, which turned out to be broken, and it was relevant to the David Bowie song Life on Mars, which is in last week's episode. If you fancy looking at that, it's the episode before this one. So following on from there, I suppose, once I'd managed to get rid of that broken synth, it was sort of back to the drawing board. And I think there were another couple of semi-broken second-hand bargains, or not so much bargains, that I was conned into buying over the space of a few months before deciding that a second-hand keyboard wasn't worth the risk. I had my sights set on a new keyboard. I really wanted a new keyboard. My first ever proper keyboard, and it was late 1997, and a couple of years earlier, the Japanese synth giant Korg had just released a new keyboard called the X5D. I had a couple of friends who were really into synthesizers and keyboards. As I said in last week's episode, I was at that point more of a guitar player, starting to become a singer, but I really had my heart set on learning to play the piano or a keyboard. And so I'd kind of called upon these friends of mine who were really into keyboards and synths and knew what they were talking about. And I'd been asking them for advice on, what I should get, what would be a good keyboard for me to get. And we tried some of the Rolands, the Yamahas, the Kurzweils, the Kawaii, and some others. But I had my heart set on this Korg X5D keyboard. It had a really nice piano sound on it, for its time, certainly anyway, as well as some really nice strings and bass sounds, some cool pads, some drum kits, everything that I would need to start recording my own songs that I'd been writing for maybe a couple of years by this point. And I've plugged it into my PC and used my sort of pirate version of Cubase at the time, which was like a kind of music software program. Then I'd be able to kind of put together demos or versions of these songs that I'd been writing that I hadn't managed to kind of put onto a sort of medium of, like a CD, a cassette or something at the time. I can't remember how far. Yeah, probably CD at that point, maybe. So anyway, I had that excitement in my belly that you get about Christmas when you're a kid. You've asked for something and there's a good chance that you might get it, and you can't stop thinking about it, and you go to bed at night every night before Christmas for about a month, and you're just like thinking about what it's going to be like and what it's going to be like to play with and what you could get out of it, and stuff that makes childhood just phenomenal. Except I wasn't really a little child at this point. I'd just turned 15, and I was at that place where I'd started to want or need, I suppose, bigger presents that I would sort of partially save up pocket money for, and then ask Mum and Dad if they could help me out with the rest, sort of thing. So I think I'd saved some of my birthday money, some pocket money, and then I'd sold some bits and pieces, and I was still nowhere near the budget that I would need for this keyboard. But my mum and dad knew how much I wanted it, and I think they also knew that it was going to be like something that was important for my development, not just a computer game or something, like something that would actually take up my time in a more positive way, and push me to learn and apply myself and all of those things. And I think that's part of the reason that they went for it, as well as just wanting to make me happy, like parents always do. So anyway, being that it wasn't a surprise, my mum and dad had said that we could go into town, and my mum took me into town one night in December after school, and we were going to look round the keyboards in a shop called Sound Control. It was on Jamaica Street in Glasgow. Just this amazing shop. It's not there anymore. It's been replaced. To be fair, it's been replaced by another music shop that I've not actually been into. But Sound Control was this just. It was just a legendary sort of institution, if you like, of music. Just a place that musicians went and looked at guitars and keyboards and basses and drum kits and everything. They had everything. They had a room full of electric guitars, a basement full of acoustic guitars, and then there was a room full of like keyboards and pianos and very first electric drum kits and sort of PA equipment and stuff like that. So a bit of everything for kind of contemporary musicians anyway. And all of the pianos and keyboards were already linked up to speakers and they were switched on. So you could just walk in and play and try them all out. And me and my mates used to go in all the time at the weekends. We would go in and we knew all the staff. We would go in at the weekends and chat to them about new guitars or new synths that were coming out. And sometimes they had stories about famous musicians who'd been in the shop to buy something. And just a kind of magical store for somebody who is obsessed with music and always has been, you know. So me and my mum are in there and I'm trying out these keyboards and I can barely play, but I'm sort of like flicking through sounds and playing some chords just to see what these sounds are like. And I suppose it was more about the aesthetic and just the sort of realistic samples that I was kind of looking for. And again, I knew before I even went in that I just wanted this Korg X5D. I just wanted it. Even now when I think about that keyboard, I get kind of butterflies in my stomach just thinking about how much it meant to me at that point. You know, it's just wrapped up in so much excitement. So it would be my vehicle to write songs, record demos, and, you know, maybe only fellow musicians will understand it, but it was just this mythical thing until I had it in my hands, you know. So anyway, my mum agreed to get me on the agreement that, you know, on the understanding that it went under the tree, the Christmas tree, and I didn't open it until Christmas Day, Christmas morning. And I was so happy. We were walking back to St Neots Centre car park in the dark, and I was carrying this huge cardboard box with the Korg logo on the side, and it had been snowing, and I remember being absolutely frozen on the walk back to the car. When we reached the car, there was this young homeless guy sitting on the street beside the parking meter. He's probably thinking that would be a good place to sit because people might have spare change to give him if they're putting money in for parking the cars. And I remember looking at him and realising that he was probably only a few years older than me, maybe 18. And he was shaking, like physically shaking from the cold. And I'm carrying this big box with my shiny new keyboard in it to take home for my Christmas in a nice warm cosy house. And my mum's never been able to walk past anyone who's in need of anything. So she knelt down beside this boy and she started talking to him and she offered him food and money and all of those things. She tried to help him. And it's, you know, just one of those heartbreaking things I'm sure we've all seen before where you see somebody like that who just needs so much that you can't really give them. I mean, you can help them by giving them some money to maybe get them somewhere to stay for the night, or you can give them some food to help, you know, fill a gap for a few hours or to the next day, but you're not really going to be able to help their situation long term unless you're a millionaire and you can offer to, you know, buy them a house or, you know, put them up in an apartment or something like that. So you know, inevitably we helped as much as we could and we drove home and my mum was really emotional. She just couldn't get it out of her head, and I remember feeling really guilty about the keyboard, you know, like I remember just having this feeling of like, God, life's not fair. Like I feel guilty that I've got this brand new keyboard, and I was so excited about the keyboard, but it was like I couldn't get it out of my head, you know. And we got home that night, my mum made us some pasta, and we actually all sat and watched It's a Wonderful Life. I think that was the first time I'd ever seen the film. I think that was the first viewing of It's a Wonderful Life, and it is just such an amazing movie. I'm sure most people watching will have seen It's a Wonderful Life. It's a classic Christmas movie. If you've not seen it, you should definitely watch it. It is a masterpiece. And it's just an emotive, you know, it's such an emotive, sad, funny, warm movie. It's everything that a film should be. You know, it's just it's excellent. It just moves you. And there's this bit at the end of this of the film. I won't spoil it for you if you've not seen it, but there's a bit at the end where the story comes to a sort of resolution, and there's a sort of realization from the main character that wealth doesn't have to be a monetary thing. And being rich is about having love and friendships and relationships and community, and it's just this magical ending to such a phenomenal movie. And when it finished, me and my brothers, we played FIFA, PES, or Pro Evolution Soccer, or something like that for a bit, and we had one of those VH1 Christmas playlists in the background. I remember hearing "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." A Merry Little Christmas. I think I should really know it's the song in question this week. Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. I'm pretty sure that's the title. And as that song was playing, we were playing on the computer, PlayStation 2 maybe at the time, or PlayStation, maybe the first PlayStation. I can't think which PlayStation it meant, but yeah, probably the first PlayStation. And that song was on in the background, and I couldn't get that poor homeless guy out of my head. You know, we were just in this lovely warm house with the Christmas tree up, playing our PlayStation, eating nice food, and there was a young lad out there, not much older than me, sleeping in a car park in the freezing cold of December. And it made me think about the story of the film and how we never really realise how rich we are until we see someone so much worse off than we are. And you know, it shouldn't have to take something like that to make us feel appreciative of what we've got, what we have, you know. And the words in the song just made me really emotional. You know, the words in Christmas songs can quite often be quite sad and nostalgic, I think, because Christmas comes round once a year and it reminds you of happy times with families and, you know, things that have changed. And it's just, yeah, I mean, that quite often happens in many Christmas songs, you know. But the words in Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas have just always, they've always just touched me. There's a line, especially the line, "Through the years we all will be together if the fates allow." I don't know, there's something you know, deeply sad about that line. I don't know why, but it gives you this sort of punch in the stomach, you know, the fragility of life and our situations that can change at any minute, and all those things. So yeah, so that's what the song always takes me back. I always think of that night when I think of this, when I hear the song. I always think of that night, and I think of, you know, Christmas time in general, but I think of that boy. And, you know, a quick fast forward, actually, a very, very brief extra story. A few weeks ago, I was actually playing piano at this private event. It was for Tiffany's, the jewellers, and it was in this stunning big castle house in the north of Scotland. It was an amazing event, really cool thing to be part of, and it was an invite only event for literally billionaires to come and buy jewels and jewellery that would never be on sale in the Tiffany shop. So these were like jewels at millions of pounds, and there were crazy amounts of money being spoken about. And I was just sitting playing this piano in this room where these billionaires walked round, sort of 2 or 3 at a time, checking out, private invitation, checking out this jewellery. I mean, there's a necklace in there on display. I think it was £5.5 million. So I don't know what that would be in other currencies for other viewers in other countries, but I mean, crazy amounts of money. So it gives you an idea of the event. And I was playing in this room and listening to these billionaires talk about money like it was nothing. People buying £1 million rings like they were buying a bag of biscuits. And you know, the rain was pouring down outside. It was a real kind of almost flood outside. And for some reason, I thought about that boy again. I thought about the boy in the car park at Christmas all those years ago. Here was me playing this really posh event, using the skills that I'd learned on that very first keyboard, you know, and I was getting paid well to play in this, not quite as well as the millionaires and the billionaires, but I was getting paid well to play for these people in a really cool function, using my piano skills that I learned on that very first keyboard. And I thought back to that kind of sliding doors moment, I suppose, of seeing something, the way life could go for people, you know, and how unfair it can be, you know, and as I say, there were people in that room throwing about money like it was it was nothing. And whilst the rain poured outside the window and onto so many people who live in the streets or can't afford to buy food or Christmas presents for kids, and I decided to play Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas on the piano at that moment. And it was October, it was the start of October. And so I disguised it by playing the chord sequence of it and not making it too obvious what the song was. But I felt like I just wanted to play it. I don't know. It wasn't like to get at anybody or to make a point, but yeah, I just thought I wanted to have that little moment of playing that song, thinking back to that time, and wondering, I suppose, whatever happened to that young lad, hoping that he's out there somewhere and that he's having a great life. So yeah, a bit of a sad. I've just realised it's a bit of a sad song, a bit of a sad story for Christmas. But it's important, I think, we think about all these things at Christmas, not just all the happy things, but also people who maybe can't enjoy things in the way that we can or that others can. So so that's what the song takes me back to. It always reminds me of that, and it's a wonderful track. The song itself was actually written in 1943 by Hugh Martin and Ralph Blaine, and it was first sung by Judy Garland in the 1944 musical Meet Me in St. Louis. Frank Sinatra also recorded a really successful, famous version with slightly different lyrics, and since then it's also been covered by dozens and dozens and dozens of artists. So many, in fact, that I felt that it would be silly to do a vocal coach reaction to it, because I don't really even know which version I'm going to do a cover version of. There's a kind of version that I've played a few times at Christmas over the years at functions and things, and I'm not really sure what version that is, if it's more like the Judy Garland one or if it's more like the Sinatra one or if it's hybrid. I don't know. So I thought we'll leave the vocal coach analysis this week. But yeah, such a stunning song, such an amazing song. And please click part 2, here or here, I can never remember which side, to hear my version of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. Have yourselves a Merry Little Christmas. I will be back maybe next week or maybe the week between Christmas and New Year. Maybe do a wee New Year's episode. But as always, if you're looking for any vocal coaching help, lessons, get in touch. Please hit the like button. It makes a big difference to get these videos out there. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Share it, comment, let me know why this is a special song to you, if it is a special song to you. And have a listen to the cover version, and I'll see you next week. And have a Merry Christmas. Thank you.